Bovine tuberculosis, or BTB, is a major infectious disease that affects the lungs and lymph nodes of ruminants and can spread from animals to humans via aerosols or through the consumption of unpasteurized dairy products from an infected animal. Wildlife animals are also affected. In the Bovigam Park, African buffaloes are tested for TB.
The testing that we do for screening for tuberculosis in the buffalo herd is that each year during our winter, the cooler part of the year, the animals are tested in a different part of the park. We perform the actual BOVIGAM tests, or the blood-based tests, here in the park. We have a team that comes here, sets up a mobile laboratory. We take the blood samples from the buffalo in the field, immediately transport them to our small laboratory. And because of the robustness of the test and its ease in performing the test, we can actually do it right on site and get an answer for the managers and the veterinarians within 2 days. The advantages of using the BOVIGAM test in buffaloes is, first of all, it's commercially available, so we believe in the quality of the product of the kit. It's easy to use, especially in a field situation, and is robust, and therefore we can easily take the blood samples with a minimum of equipment, set that up, and it's really important when we're working with wildlife that we use blood-based tests because it only requires a single immobilization instead of the skin test that requires 2 immobilizations.
We are here in the Bovigam Park in KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. The park consists of 960 square kilometers of hilly topography and is home to the Big Five, including black and white rhinoceros and lions that can all be affected by TB. Testing of buffaloes revealed the extent of TB infection in the park.
After we had completed an initial sort of survey of our buffalo herds, we realized that we had prevalences in some herds that were very high. They were exceeding 60%. In other herds, particularly in the northern part of the park, they were pretty low. We felt that 60%, for instance, was totally unacceptable. And we started controlling it by testing buffalo on an annual basis, trying to reduce the prevalence so that we could get to more acceptable levels, which is what we deem to be less than 20% and preferably around about 10%. Once the decision had been taken to try and control the disease, we then had to try and make a plan to catch the animals and to process them. And hence we developed this boma made of steel interlocking plates, which we started using in the year 2000 and has served us very, very well over the ensuing years. It certainly is very, very effective. We can process around about 25 buffalo an hour, which means you can do large numbers of buffalo, which is obviously works in our favor too. Once these animals are in that boma, they get pushed in just using a helicopter through a traditional normal capture site, which is linked to the boma setup. Once they're in the boma, we then can access them with pulse syringes, and we're able to immobilize groups of about between 5 and 8 animals at a time.
When we do TB testing using the BOVIGAM in buffalo, it's very similar to what we do in cattle. The primary difference is that the animals need to be immobilized in order to collect the blood sample. However, it's the same exact procedure in which we take the blood, stimulate it, harvest the samples after an overnight incubation, and perform a simple ELISA. We even use the same kind of criteria for determining an infected versus an uninfected buffalo as we would for cattle.
Once we receive the test results, we can distinguish between the positive animals and the negative animals. The positive animals will then be separated from the negative animals, with the negative animals being released back into the park. The positive animals will subsequently be culled and processed through an abattoir. The meat is then inspected by us or qualified meat inspectors, and if deemed fit for human consumption, is distributed to the local community for consumption at a very reasonable cost.
Doing TB testing, particularly using the BOVIGAM, we contribute to the conservation goals of the park in a number of different ways. One is trying to improve the general health and welfare of the buffalo population, but it's also reducing the risk of spread to other important species like the lions, wild dogs, antelope, etc. In addition, by reducing infection in buffalo, it also reduces the potential spread to animals on the interface, such as cattle, and then even into humans that border the park.